That's a shame. Guess I'll have to give your lemon pie to someone else then, she replied with a twinkle in her eye. Oh, no, you won't. Give me my pie, he said as he gathered her in his arms for a big bear hug. He loved his mother's homemade lemon pie and bragged about it everywhere he went. As he cleared the table and she went to retrieve the pie, she began complaining about all of his planning and the fact that he was not married yet. Mom, we've been having a great time. Please let's not spoil it. I'm not spoiling anything. We've been talking all evening and now I'm spoiling things? I know you think I should be thinking about getting married, but a wife doesn't fit into my plans right now. Oh, here we go with your plans again. Mom, why do you always think I'm doing something wrong? Why can't you just be proud of me? I'm not on drugs. I'm in the church. I've got a good job. And I don't have babies spread out all over the place. Did I say I wasn't proud of you? Did you ever hear me say I wasn't proud of you? No, you did not. All I said was you are too serious with all your plans. Plan this and you plan that, and being on schedule with your life and all that stuff. You sound like an old man. I do not sound like an old man. I sound like a young man with a plan. If I didn't have a plan, I'd be just like everybody else, and I refuse to be like everybody else. You could never be like everybody else, and I am proud of you. But I noticed that you talk a lot about your plans for your life, and not once, not even once, have I heard you talk about the plans God may have for your life. Oh, come on, Mom. You know what I mean. I know what you said. Well, God knows what I mean. Stop expecting God to decipher your mind and speak what you know you should. God is not a mind reader, nor does he have to be. Of course, he knows what you think and feel and want, but you are getting a little too into what you can do for yourself, and you need to stop and recognize that God is the master planner, and without him, all your plans will go nowhere. Mom, you know I didn't mean, it doesn't matter what you think I know. You need to start giving God the glory for the accomplishments in your life and ask him to guide your footsteps and stop trying to make your own tracks. They sat silent for a while, each in their own thoughts, before he abruptly rose, kissed her on the cheek, thanked her for dinner, and went back to his own apartment. She knew he wouldn't say anything else because it was his habit to withdraw from any type of confrontation, be it verbal or physical. She learned long ago that when he grew quiet, not to press him because it wouldn't do any good. As he left, he was seething. How dare she tell him he wasn't including God in his plans? He could understand a couple of years ago before he had given his life to God. But now that he was born again, it was hurtful and disappointing for her not to see that his life revolved around God. By the time he had gotten home, he had calmed down and thought about his mother's words. He understood where she was coming from and realized she was right. He replayed the evening in his mind and saw that his words were exactly as she had said. He did always say what he planned and what he was going to do and where he was going to go. He never said, if it's God's will. It was always him, him, him. He called his mother before he went to bed that night and told her that he was sorry for leaving so abruptly and again thanked her for dinner. She suggested they make it a regular monthly thing, and he agreed before telling her that he loved her and hung up. From that time on, he was mindful of his words and careful to thank God for all of his accomplishments. He pulled his mind away from that uncomfortable conversation in his mother's kitchen, determined not to let it take away from the joy he was feeling about his life at this moment. He was sure God was on his side because everything was working out so well. The new church, the new job, the new house, and now he was about to get a wife. The only thing he didn't plan on getting was a ready-made family, but he was willing to accept every piece of luggage that came along with Sister Jones. Her children seemed to be well-behaved children, so he felt not one bit of apprehension. Glancing at his watch, Paul was pleased to see that he was going to be on time for his appointment with the cable company unless they came early. And when did the cable company ever come early, right? When the light turned green, he stepped on the gas and slowly pulled into the intersection. As he stepped on the gas, he moved into unplanned territory. As he moved into the intersection, his whole planned world turned upside down. Suddenly, everything was moving very fast. Suddenly, everything was moving in slow motion. Suddenly, everything was moving fast and slow at the same time. There was no time to plan his next move. The blare of a car horn made him jerk his head to the left. A woman's scream made him clench the steering wheel with all his might, and he raised his foot off of the gas pedal to slam on the brakes. The blur of a speeding car heading in his direction made his eyes widen in surprise. The squeal of tires caused his heart to pound heavily in his chest, and he whispered, "Jesus." Only 5 seconds had passed, but it seemed like an eternity. Paul felt a surge of panic begin to rise in him, and he thought this couldn't be happening to him when he heard a loud crunching sound in his left ear, and suddenly a searing pain tore through his left side, and then mercifully there was only darkness. The black SUV was traveling so fast that it was impossible to stop. It slammed into the side of Paul Hayes' door with the force of a pile driver. The air was split with screams, horns, and sobbing as people all ran to see if there was anything they could do for the unconscious men in the white Cadillac and the black SUV. Chapter 3. All that and 5 kids, too. William Banyan felt like an excited child on Christmas morning. This was the day he was going to finally ask Denise Jones out on a date. This was the day he had been praying about and rehearsing for and saving for, and he felt like he was going to burst from sheer anticipation because he was going to make his feelings known to this spectacular woman. He had gotten to know her children from school, and he had a great deal of respect for the magnificent job she and her late husband had done in raising them. When he learned she was in the process of adopting 3 more children that had been recently orphaned, he knew this was the kind of strong, selfless, kind-hearted, God-fearing woman he wanted to walk beside for the rest of his life. He knew the difference in their race was going to be an obstacle for some to cope with. But deep in his heart, he was more than sure that together he and Denise could handle it. His friends and family were not too happy about his choice, but he had given up caring about what his friends and his family thought and felt. That was why he had decided to join the Holy Temple Church. When they had opened the doors of the church last Sunday for all who wanted to join the church family, he happily became a member. There was a thunderous applause when he walked to the front of the church, and he wondered if it had more to do with the fact that he was a white man than that he was a new member. As each man, woman, and child of Holy Temple shook his hand and welcomed him to the congregation, he felt deep in his spirit that he was finally in the right place. He could not explain the feeling except to say that he felt like he had been on a long journey and had finally come home. When the Jones family approached him to give him the right hand of fellowship, Will was excited as a kid on Christmas morning. He smiled warmly at the friendly and encouraging looks he got from Matt and the twins. But when he was face to face with Denise Jones, he felt like they too were the only two people in the church. When Denise took hold of Will's hand, he was embarrassed to feel the color creep up around his neck, and he knew from the look in her eyes that she had also noticed him turning a crimson red while holding onto her hand for what seemed an eternity. "Welcome to Holy Temple, Brother Banyan," she said with a small, husky voice while holding onto his hand. "Thank you, Sister Jones," he replied, not taking his eyes from hers and reluctantly letting go of her hand. He didn't care anymore about the events that led him to this moment. All he cared about was the fact that tonight, after Bible study, he was going to ask Denise Jones on what he was sure was going to be the first of many dates they were going to be on. A quick glance at the clock spurred him into motion, and he turned back to his closet to pick out the perfect outfit for tonight. It didn't matter that it was still early in the morning and he had hours to get ready for tonight's Bible study. He had taken the day off just so his mind wouldn't have to be cluttered with anything but what he was going to say to Denise. Although he loved the kids and his coaching job, he was in a mood to be selfish. He briefly wondered if he should have spoken to her son Matthew about his intentions. After all, Matt was the man of the house, and giving him that respect would also give him an ally inside the household. He momentarily regretted not going to school today because it would have been easy to get hold of Matt and ask for his permission to date his mother. But he was not about to backpedal now. What's done was done. He would speak to Matt later, and knowing the kind of kid Matt was, he was sure he would be okay with his decision. William knew he was getting nervous by the dialogue that was going on in his head and decided to go to the park for a quick jog to clear his head and ease the anxiety that was building up in his stomach. As he changed into his jogging suit, his mind went back to Denise and how she would look in a jogging suit or an evening gown or a bathing suit. He wondered what she was doing at that exact moment. He wondered if she had eaten breakfast yet and what her favorite breakfast was. He wondered if she liked flowers or chocolate candy or romantic walks. He wondered how such a beautiful woman could manage to be alone and wondered how any man with a brain and eyes could resist wanting her to be a part of his life. He had quietly and inconspicuously observed the exchange between Denise and the other members of the church, especially the men. He was sure she was not involved with any of the men there and was hopeful she wasn't involved with anyone outside of the church. Walking to the refrigerator and taking out a bottle of water, he picked up his keys and headed to the park to run off some nervousness. He was sure he would feel better after his run, and then he would resume the preparations for his big night. Running had always been therapeutic for William, and as usual, he felt invigorated and refreshed when he returned home exactly 2 hours later. He walked straight to the bathroom and peeled off his sweaty clothes and jumped straight into the hot shower. As the water washed over his body, he thought again about Denise and wondered if she liked bubble baths or the sauna or hot showers and massages. He wasn't annoyed that the thoughts of her dominated his mind since she was all he wanted to think about anyway. However, he was a bit concerned that thoughts of her in the shower or in a bathing suit or in a nightgown or on a massage table seemed to be quite graphic in his mind's eye. He was a man of God, and she was a woman of God, and this was going to be a holy union, and she was not about to let the devil pollute his mind with impure thoughts. He wanted to marry this woman, it was true, but until that time, he would not allow the devil to have him in bed with her in his mind. It didn't matter that he was a man and she was a woman, a very beautiful woman, a very beautiful, full-bodied, sexy woman. No, that didn't matter at all. What did matter was that they were Christians, and he was not going to allow his flesh to rule his body. He reached over to the handle and sharply turned the handle from the left to the right and gasped as the hot water was replaced by a sudden blast of cold water. He refused to move and allowed cold water to wash away all traces of the carnal thoughts that had just a minute ago been evident, and when he could no longer stand the cold sting of the icy water, he exited from the shower and headed back to his bedroom to continue getting his clothes ready for Bible study and Sister Jones. He decided on his blue suit and gold shirt and walked over to the dresser to pick out a matching tie when his eyes fell on the small jewelry box from Tiffany's. If his family and friends knew that he had purchased an engagement ring for a woman he had not even dated yet, they would be ready to have him committed. He put his suit across the bed and carefully placed his already pressed shirt on top of it, careful not to crease it, and lovingly picked up the case that held the beautiful ring whose sparkle was so bright that, in his opinion, the only thing that outshone it was the sparkle that shone in Denise Jones's eyes. He was not in a big hurry, but he would be so happy when the day came for him to put this ring on her finger and gently kiss the lips that he loved to see curve into the smile that always seemed to make his heart skip a beat.